Hello, my name is Abraham Jaimes, and welcome to the first ever broadcast from the Trench Dynasty News. As you can see, we have no studio, so please help us in donating to our website. Please help the trenches in getting an A.org. For our first segment, we'll go to my twin brother, Abraham Jaimes, for the weather. Thank you, Abraham. Hello, my name is Lou Abraham Jaimes, and today we'll be looking at the daily weather for our beautiful city. The distribution of weather in the Trench Dynasty City is slightly skewed left bimodal at 84 to 86 degrees and 46 to 84 degrees, with no outliers nor gaps. The distribution of daily weather in Trench Dynasty City has a center at 63 Fahrenheit degrees and a spread at 38 Fahrenheit degrees. Now we'll be looking at an SRS of 30 randomly selected dates. First, we number off each day of the year from 1 to 365, then use a random digit generator like 1 to 365 to randomly select 30 days, ignoring repeats, then finding the average of those days. Okay. These are the days selected, and it has a mean of 17, Q1 at 37, medium at 73.5, Q3 at 80, and the maximum at 95. Now we're going to run a 1SAT int. For our checks, we got independence. Yes, we can assume one day's temperature does not affect another day's temperature. For randomization, yes, given. Randomly select 30. 10% conditions. Yes, we can assume there are at least 300 days of recorded weather. Nearly normal condition. Yes, by the CLT, the nearly normal condition is confirmed. Since my checks for inference are confirmed, I can run a 1SAT. This is the formula for 1SAT. I'm 95% confident that the true population mean of the mean temperature of 30 randomly selected dates is between 51.579 and 69.754 degrees Fahrenheit. Thank you, and now back to Big Abraham. Thank you, Abraham. What a great dude. For our next segment, we'll be going to the sports with Jonathan Covington.
Go. Hello everyone, this is Jonathan Covington coming to you live from the Trench Dynasty. Here we're going to be comparing our very own Detroit Pistons and our Boston Celtics in a sports comparison. So let's pull up the graph. So we have our graphs right here. This is the Boston Celtics and this is the Detroit Pistons. It appears that the Boston Celtics are roughly symmetrical because the mean and median are roughly about the same. Whereas we have the Detroit Pistons that are about skewed right with an outlier. All right, the modes are not shown and they are not given, but there is a gap. There appears to be no gaps in the Boston Celtics, but there appears to be a gap in the Detroit Pistons at 91.2 points per game. Then we move on to the outliers. Boston Celtics, they appear clean, they have no outliers. But then we have one outlier at the Detroit Pistons again, and that's at 91.2. So then we're gonna get into the actual comparison. So first we have the center. So now we have the Boston Celtics right here, who has a center of 106.1 points per game, and then we have the Detroit Pistons has a 104.5733 points per game. So they have a larger center. Then on the other hand, we have the Boston Celtics, who also has a clear lead over Detroit in spread, 7.7874 points per game versus the 2.327 points per game. Which that would mean that the Boston Celtics would have a higher variability. But in this case, we wouldn't want them to have a higher variability because that would mean that they have numerous games where they scored lower than the Detroit Pistons. So I was informed of an anonymous text where someone said that they think that the Boston Celtics are better than the Detroit Pistons in terms of scoring these past 15 seasons. So let's run a little test to dispute that theory. So first off, we're going to define the means. So we have the mean of the Detroit Pistons, and that is the average scoring team, the true mean population of the average scoring per 15 seasons. Then we also have the Boston Celtics, which is the true mean population average of points scored per game per 15 seasons. So also we have the null and null alternative, which that would be the mean of C minus the mean of D is equal to 0. Then we have the alternative, which is the mean of C minus mean of D is not equal to 0. So let's get into our checks. So first we have independence. Does that check out? I don't think independence really checks out because the independence may not, because when the Detroit Pistons play the Boston Celtics, when they play each other, that may affect the average points that they have. So independence may not check out. We have randomization. That doesn't really check out, but there is a reason to believe that these two teams aren't representative of all the other teams in the NBA. Next, we have the 10% condition, and there is reason to believe that there's been over 150 games played over all the games in all of the history of the NBA. Next, we have the CLT, and since n equals 30, or is greater than or equal to 30, then my central limit theorem checks out. Then we have independence within, and that is one team's point average total per season should not affect another team's point average per season as well. And since my checks for inference are confirmed, I can run a 2SAT t-test for different population means. To So to start off with, we have our skeleton. And we have mean of 1 minus mean of 2, and then it's equal to the square root of standard deviation of 1 over sample size of 1. Then we average that, or not average that, we add that, and then we have the standard deviation of 2 over the sample size of 2 as well. So now we're going to plug it in. So now we have 106.58, and that would actually be our mean of the Detroit Pistons, minus 104.5733, which is our mean of Boston Celtics. Then we have 2.327, which would be the Detroit Pistons standard deviation over 15, which is the sample size. Then we have 7.7874, which is the actual standard deviation of the Boston Celtics over 15, which is also the sample size. So now we put that all in a calculator, we all run that. So now we get a p-value of 0.8236. And we also have a t-value of 0.95623. So since my p-value of 0.8236 is greater than my significance level of 0.05, there is not sufficient evidence to conclude that the Boston Celtics is in fact a better team than the Detroit Pistons scoring-wise per these 15 seasons. All right, I'll see you later.
Thank you for the insight. Coming up after a short break will be Maria with the crime rate and poverty rate.
Yo, what are those shoes?
Are you tired of feeling tough? I'm tired of boys asking me how the weather there. Going to big man section of the store, getting size 16 shoes. Like I'm just tired of all of it.
Well, I got something just for you. Just for $14.99, limited edition. Get it while you still can. It's a shrinker pill.
Guys, this shrinkage pill works wonders. I'm shorter now. I'm a girl, and I'm also rich.
So for all you top people who want to get the pill now, go to our website, huntingrichesgetting.org.
Side effects may include constipation, skin rash, or dermatitis, dizziness, drowsiness, dry mouth, headache, insomnia, nausea, fever, fatigue, death, device breakage, or failure, device migration, infection, organ. Damage, perforation, revision, surgery, bruising around the surgical site, mild allergic or other reaction, minor infection, numbness, pain, redness, swelling, or 35.
Do you struggle with stats? And are you sitting on the far left side of the classroom in the trenches? Well, I've got the solution for you.
With this drink right here, you have the ability to teleport to Mr. Beast's house at any time you want.
All you have to do is take a little sip.
Now, gas Mr. B for help!
Get this drink because it has no side effects. The only effect is getting a 105 and a perfect A in the class.
Thank you, Abraham. I'm Alir Oropeza, and I have breaking news from the annual Trench Dynasty newscast from us to you. It appears that there have been great spikes in the city's neighborhood crime rates and poverty rates. Active politicians and activists have been at an all-time high anger, demanding a linear regression analysis to determine whether or not the two variables, poverty and crime, are associated. So folks, this is a reminder. Let's work together to bring down our poverty and crime rates in Trench City. Will there be an association between the two variables? Seems likely. Let's dive a little deeper. However, let's interpret this graph. There appears to be a strong positive 0.85 linear association between crime rates in 10 neighborhoods in Trench City and poverty rates in 10 neighborhoods in Trench City. But what about the slope? For every 1% increase in crime rates in a Trench City neighborhood, my model predicts an average increase of 0.30% in the poverty rates of a Trench City neighborhood. Some of you in the audience may be wondering, what about when we have 0% crime rate? What happens to poverty rates when we have a crime rate of 0%? Well, at a crime rate value of 0%, our model predicts a poverty rate value of 16.38%. In addition, we have an R-squared value of 0.7225. A professionally done interpretation of our R-squared value has been finally sent in. 72.25% of the variation in poverty rates in 10 neighborhoods in Trench City can be explained by the approximate linear model with crime rates in 10 neighborhoods in Trench City. We hope these interpretations help aid and relieve the stress of those who feel angered about poverty and crime rates. Back to you in the studio.
We'll go with Hyana, who...
Hi, I'm Hyena, and I'm part of the Trench Dynasty City Concern Council. And we've received a very concerning message from one of our fellow citizens. I wonder what this could be about. Let's take a look. Hey, so what's your concern?
Hey, so my concern if it Hey, so my concern, if it is true that violence against the Trench Dynasty military residents involved different destructive deadly weapons than other attacks in the whole city of Trench Dynasty City.
The Trench Dynasty City reports that roughly 997,890 deaths or injuries had occurred for military residents. And of these victims, an injury or death, 837,928 can be identified were caused by deadly weapons. And those that can be identified, 532,503 were killed by bombs, 237,508 by poison gas, and 67,852 were killed by other weapons. The Trench Dynasty City Police reports states that among these injuries, the deadly weapons usage are 43% are bombs, 38% poison gas, 90% other weapons. And with all this provided information, is there convincing evidence that the violence against Trench Dynasty City military residents involves different deadly weapons than other attacks in the whole city? Let's take a look. Since we're going to perform a chi-square test, we're going to have to determine the null, which is the distribution of deaths or injuries that involve the Trench Dynasty City military residents. Involving a variety of destructive weapons is the same as the distribution of the additional attacks in the entirety of the Trench Dynasty City. And the null alternative is the distribution of deaths or injuries that involves the Trench Dynasty City military residents involving a variety of destructive weapons is different than the distribution of additional attacks in the entirety of the Trench Dynasty City. Now we have to check the checks. The counted data check is confirmed since the data was given in counts. The independence check is a weapon used for a person's death or injury should be independent of other weapons used for a death or injury. The randomization is no, but there is no reason to believe that the data isn't representative of the whole Trench Dynasty City. The 10% condition is yes. There should be at least 8,379,280 deaths or injuries in the Trench Dynasty City, and the each cell frequency is confirmed. Since my checks for inference are confirmed, I can run a chi-square goodness of fit test with the degrees of freedom of 2. Now we have to run a chi-square test, in which the formula is sigma of difference of observed minus expected squared divided by expected, in which it results to this: 532,503 minus 228,976.29 squared divided by 228,976.29 plus 237,508 minus 90,253.04 squared divided by 90,253.04 plus 67,852 subtract 12,892.83 squared divided by 12,892.83, which it results to 836,928.3877 with the p-value of 0 and the degrees of freedom of 2. Since my p-value of 0 is less than my significance level of alpha 0.05, I will reject my null, meaning there is sufficient evidence to conclude that the distribution of deaths or injuries that involve the Trench Dynasty City military residents involving a variety of destructive weapons is different than the distribution of additional attacks in the entirety of the Trench Dynasty City.
Thank you for tuning into this broadcast of Trench Dynasty News. Remember to please donate to our website. Please help the trenches in getting an A.org.